Welcome to The Universe is Screaming, the podcast about the knowledge, power, and wisdom the universe is trying to show us. Are you listening? It's time to tune everything else out and tune you in. Here's your host, Alan Miller. And welcome to the show. Man, it's been crazy 2020, and December is no exception. I mean, we have all kinds of things going on in the world, but the most important thing is taking care of your family and planning for January, planning for 2021. And on the phone, or actually on video, I've got Coach Mark Mawhinney, and that's how I say it, right? Mawhinney?
You got her.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I'm impressed. Not many people get it on the first try. So
awesome. I was trying, man. He is the I guess the founder of the Coaching Jungle. And if you're a coach, a lot of you people are involved in the Coaching Jungle, the group on Facebook, as well as Natural Born Coaches. It's your podcast. And so just give us a little background on when you started coaching.
Well, I started coaching in 2014. My background's actually in real estate. I spent about 10 years doing that right out of university. So I built up a real estate business to about 100 agents and employees, and everything was going great. Then 2009 hit. So most people that were in real estate around that time know where the story's going. Everything collapsed.
I recall it well.
Well, you being in Las Vegas, you would especially have seen a lot of going on in 08 and 09.
Yeah, we were ground zero. Well, and also, here's just a quick thing, is I owned 18 rental properties. I was in the middle of 5 flips, and my wife was a real estate agent at the time. So,
oh, wow. Yeah.
There we go.
So what's that saying we say up here in Canada, that when the United States sneezes, we catch a cold. So it took a little bit, then it caught up to us. But basically, I spent a few years in the wilderness, and I was going through a really dark time where I wasn't sure, if I was going to come out of it. Not trying to give the whole sob story that you hear online where people say they were living in garbage cans or dumpsters and drinking sewer water and eating rats. It wasn't that bad. But after 10 years of uninterrupted success, suddenly, bang, my business closed. And there's a lot of questions you have then, because you tie your identity into a business and all of a sudden you lose it. And you think, geez, is there something wrong with me? Flash forward to 2014, I'd been helped in between those years by several coaches and mentors. So when I was ready to get back into business in 2014, I thought, you know what, I have seen firsthand what coaching can do and how it can help people, and this would be a great business to get into. And here we are. I'm just about almost to the 7-year anniversary. So I could say that I'm now glad that it happened with the business closure, but I would change some things, certainly, if I could go back in time. But I wouldn't be talking with you here today, Alan, had that not happened.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, and why this is such a great story is because you had your collapse the last time, you know what I mean, during the Great Recession. And so this COVID, this fits in perfect during this time, because a lot of people are out there in flux. They have a lot of gifts, talents, and abilities, and they're trying to figure out, either what can I do, or, and how can I take care of my family, or how can I thrive? And I mean, you're an example of what you can do when you pick yourself up.
Yeah, and not to make light of 2020 has been a bit of a dumpster fire in the world, right? But, for my business, it's actually up over 2019, knock on wood. And where I've gone through those tough times, I've actually gone through not one, but 2 business closures back in my real estate days, that now I'm going through this, and it hasn't affected me like some other people. Some other people are like chickens with their heads cut off. And I think part of the problem is they've got CNN turned on 24/7, and they're refreshing all the different news sites, and they're in that world. They're buying into that fear. And that would be my first suggestion. If going through this, it's not going to help to be watching CNN. Turn it off, get some fresh air outside, and work on your business as well. But going through that past experience definitely helped me get through this 2020.
Well, and if you're a coach, then you understand how, like, the media in general can program you. And so here's what I think the worst thing about COVID, the in general. So if you're a coach, you know that after, normally if you can stay on track and repeat something for 30 days, anywhere from 30 days to 45 days, that becomes a habit. And so if you're watching TV all the time and watching fear, that becomes a habit. And then worse yet, it programs in we can't, or I can't. Like, mom, even in simple conversations, with even your children, mom and dad, I want to go get something to eat. Oh, well, we could go to the pizza joint, but they closed. We can't do this because this. We can't do this. We can't go in there unless we get a mask. And so what your mantra is for 2020 is I can't. So you have to figure out the opposite mantra, which is, well, okay, we can't do that, but what can we do? What can we do?
Yeah. Well, a true story, me being in Canada, we've got that white stuff called snow. So you probably haven't seen much of it in Vegas.
Not so much in Vegas, about 3 times since I've been here. So
I was recently in my garage to getting my vehicle done. The winter tires are being put on, and I have to say that the people do my vehicle are excellent. I love them; they're great. The one bone I would pick with them is in their waiting room. They've got the TV on, and they have it fairly loud, and they have it on the news. And it's that looping news cycle where it's the same news every 5 minutes with a little bit of weather spliced in.
Yep.
So I realized when I left there recently, after, 2 hours of this, oh God, I was just being bombarded with this. Just, you'd swear the world was ending, right? It was just COVID or whatever. And I made the metaphor with you. I said, Alan, imagine if every time you turned on TV, they were putting a tracker of how many deaths were by automobile, on the highways. And they had stories of people got in these terrible accidents and needing the jaws of life. And they had that ticker going up with thousands of deaths every day. And then the government's talking about how we have to get people off the roads. We would be scared silly. No one would want to get into a, vehicle, be a death machine. Right. But of course, we're not going to ban cars and go back to horse and buggy. And that's the same way I view it with COVID. Unfortunately, politicians, and usually politicians haven't even run a lemonade stand, so they don't really know business, economy, stuff like that. They only have one solution for it. If they see an uptick, in people getting sick, right away, close everything down, lock it down. There's no nuanced approach with it. And it's not just in there's a lot of crazy governors, no offense, in your country.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. In the blue states, unfortunately, I find it. But I've tried some crazy red state governors too. But here in Canada, we're not immune to it. I mean, here in Canada, we're dealing with my politicians here. My neck of the woods are just as crazy, batshit crazy over this stuff. So it's very frustrating. There are a lot of people that I've known and respected and thought were bright people, and going through this in 2020, I'm not so sure anymore. I'm a little bit, it's like that old episode of The Simpsons. Remember Mr. Burns was negotiating with Homer, and he thought Homer was a genius with the strike at the power plant. Give the fools their tartar sauce. Homer gets a concession. He starts doing the Three Stooges thing on the floor. With whoop, 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 whoop. Mr. Burns says to Smithers, I'm beginning to think he's not the whatever genius I thought he was. That's how I think now with a lot of people who are running around chickens with their heads cut off.
I know. Well, it's the people that, there's a lot of people that scream science, and then they scream, well, it's got to be their science. They scream about science, but and the other thing is it's just you can smell agenda. When you just like, if it doesn't make sense, then somebody has an agenda. If it doesn't make just common sense, A plus B equals C, it's just you know what I mean? Just agenda.
Yeah.
So
well, and like I said, there's no nuance. If you question that narrative, then you're a kooky conspiracy nut, and you want to kill everyone's grandmother and grandfather, and you're worse than Hitler. Just for asking some questions, with it. And that's been the frustrating thing this year. So I'm hoping 2021 people come back to their senses, and we can kind of move on from it. But
I think so.
Interesting year.
Yeah, it's interesting year for people like in flux with their like with what they've, gone through, it's actually, this whole thing is traumatizing. But could you give us a few pointers, or just of how you can take your gifts, talents, and abilities and turn them into a coaching business? If people have always wanted to be a coach, they have that feeling.
Boy, that's tough to answer in a soundbite because there's
there's so much.
The problem I see with a lot of people getting into the coaching industry is their heart's in the right place. However, they're not looking at it as a business. They're looking at, I'm becoming a coach. So whenever I meet someone, I wouldn't say, so Alan, why did you become a coach? I would say, why did you start your coaching business? Or how long have you had your coaching business? I'm adding the words coaching plus business, and I'm tying them together as much as humanly possible, because I want coaches to understand that they're entrepreneurs, whether you like it or not. You can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't have any clients coming through the door, you're not going to get any opportunity to help anyone. So if I had to put my money on anyone, if it was an excellent coach with crappy marketing skills or an excellent marketer with crappy coaching skills, unfortunately, the excellent marketer with crappy coaching skills is going to do better. That's the way that it goes. Now, the best coaches are able to marry the sizzle and the steak. They got both of them right with it. But that's what I would stress to somebody who's starting off as a coach is, hey, this is a business. Don't expect that you're going to be able to just slap up a website or a few social media accounts and have people rushing through the door. That's just not going to happen. And I don't know about you. When I started, I was estimating that I'd be spending 80% of my time working with clients, maybe 20% on the other stuff, like finding clients and tying up some back end stuff and some paperwork. Most coaches I talk to, myself included, you're probably spending 80% of the time on the client acquisition and getting the business coming in, and then 20% or even less actually working with people.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's one thing, is that, there's this heart-centered coach movement that I've seen. And I think actually, when you think about, there are a lot of people that really, really want to help, but they have to really, really want to help themselves as well. It's like, if they don't want to, if they don't even have an income goal or what they want to be making or charging, or it doesn't matter that you're a heart-centered coach. And the other thing is, there is a level of it's just marketing that is so cheesy, that if you add heart-centered coach and then all the cheese, then it makes it reeks of insincerity as well.
Yeah. Well, there are too many coaches who are choosing directions with their business because they think that's where the money is.
Yeah.
But they're not enjoying that. So they think, well, I have to be this type of coach. I have to work with this type of person. A good example, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I had a Zoom call with a coach who was struggling, and her business wasn't going the way she wanted to. So she booked a call with me and we hopped on to talk. Now, she was an executive coach. So when I hear executive coach, I'm often thinking of the stock images that you see online, certain images, buttoned up, type of coach. And when we connected on Zoom, she was the opposite of what I would have expected. She kind of had a flower child, like hippie vibe, which was interesting. So as we talked, I said, so why did you become an executive coach? And she said, well, it's because I heard that's where the money is. But shit, honestly, I find a lot of those corporate types to be like really arrogant and assholes.
Yeah.
And I said, well, right there, that could be the issue. If you don't like the people that you're targeting or whatever, then that's going to come through, whether you think so or not. And my suggestion to her was have a good hard look at who you're actually working for. Now, I didn't have a long enough call to know her whole backstory, but she seems like much more of the creative type and someone that would be a little different than the buttoned up culture of a corporate America or executive type coaching. And so I think there's far too many coaches who are just looking, okay, where can I make the most money the quickest? But ironically, they're making less money and they're miserable doing it that way.
Well, don't you think, and that's because they're, I mean, kind of in a nutshell, what you said is like, they're a unicorn disguising themselves as a horse or as a donkey or as something else. It's like, what do you want me to be? I'm this because I can make, but like everybody has a unique set of circumstances and skills. And just because the money is in working with corporate people or whatever, because we heard that, and that's the other problem is you can go as a coach into somewhere where you're not really familiar, and work with somebody and get a client and get a nice fat paycheck or whatever, but you can't scale it because you can't replicate that success because you're not able to get those people the benefits, not being able to get them the results. So
when I'm talking to a newer coach or someone who's about to get started in coaching and they say, I have no clue who I want to work with, I say there's a couple things. First off, look at your background or your experience. So a good example, I know with you, you've got 20 some years background in radio.
Yeah.
That's a lot of experience, a lot of time. So how people in broadcasting think, how they talk, what they're thinking of a night as their head hits a pillow, what they're dreaming of or whatever. So, someone in your situation, it's like, okay, maybe you poke around and explore something in that world, see if there's something that can fit. So I always say, look at your background, your experience for that reason. The other thing is you have to enjoy it. So like the example I gave with the hippie executive coach is if you don't like the people that you're targeting, then that's probably not the best bet. And finally, you want to look at things that you enjoy, that you love learning about. So if I ask a newer coach, what kind of blogs do you read? What videos are you watching on YouTube when you've got a few minutes break after you put the kids to bed? What type of books are you reading? What could you talk about all day long, talk someone's ear off? There could be something in there that could work for your coaching focus as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think that people just the problem is there's no like coach university. I mean, you have to find coaches that are successful and then kind of mirror them, and which you can do that. We've joined the coaching jungle, that kind of thing. But you don't necessarily go to university for that. So the process isn't set up. I think one of the most frustrating things with coaches is that when you read something, you read that, okay, you need a blog, and then you'll read another post and they'll say, well, you need a funnel, or you need this type of website, or you need a lead capture page, or whatever that is, and then you don't run Facebook ads, and then you do run Facebook ads. I mean, it's just all that stuff. So, one thing that really kind of popped in my head about coaching is, how to start your successful coaching business with a shoestring budget. How can you share that with us?
Sure. So when I started my coaching business in 2014, I thought I was at a disadvantage because I didn't have access to the kind of funds, the money that I had back in real estate. Part of the reason my real estate business took off is I invested a ton of money into marketing, postcards, because this was old school, early 2000s, but radio ads and TV and everything else. I just dumped thousands of dollars every month into it. So when I started my coaching business, I'm like, gosh, shoot, I wish I had that ability now. This sucks. But it was a blessing in disguise, because what happened is it forced me to roll up my sleeves and to work with organic messaging, really posting and being active, being visible, doing things like podcasting, email lists, and then the social media stuff. And by doing that, it gave me an opportunity to really hone my messaging, get better at it. Now you compare that to people who, let's say they get a early retirement, from their job, or they have access to money to throw into it. I've heard horror stories of new coaches blowing $30,000-$40,000 on these magic funnels and not making one sale, and throwing all this money into Facebook ads and everything else. And it's not giving them an opportunity to do some of those things I mentioned that I was able to improve on, like my copywriting, by doing it organically. They just think, okay, well, I'll throw tens and tens of thousands of dollars with this expert and this ninja funnel and everything. Then they don't improve and they've got nothing to show for it. So you don't need a big war chest to build your business. In some ways, there's an advantage of being lean, mean, getting started out with it. And there's nothing wrong with a shoestring budget. My business is a perfect example of it, because I was able to make a go of it, starting with very little when I got started coaching.
So you were talking about you had to learn copywriting, and you
Yeah.
definitely had some marketing skills from before. So you had to learn. Um, I think the problem is that people think, like you were saying, is they could throw money at something and therefore, be successful, but it doesn't quite work that way. But
Mm.
if you do, I'm not saying you do everything by yourself, but at least know a little bit about what you're getting into, whether it's a
Yeah.
funnel that you're in, like, take the time to look into that, into whatever you're purchasing or whatever coach or whatever background, because I think one thing is that there is also a trap that new coaches get into, of where they are being coached by the coaches that coach,
Mm.
or that kind of thing, of where, no, I help coaches scale, or it seems like that's kind of a trend, that it's also like, they're going where the money's at. So they're thinking these new coaches, Sony maybe has a little money in their pocket, they cashed out of their 401k, whatever it is, and they're going to go ahead and help them scale their business. But a lot of them, and I've experienced this, of that when I investigate, they haven't scaled their own business. They scale their business by people that, I don't know what you would call that. It's like
Mm.
this kind of thing of, just, I don't know. It's almost like, not expert. It's being expert before you're an expert. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I get the whole fake it till you make it. I think,
Yeah.
you have to put your best foot forward, and not to knock that. However, if you take you buy $100 program, you spend the weekend going through it, then Monday morning you roll out of bed and say, I'm an expert at X. Are you really an expert?
Yeah.
I think one of the big issues with coaches is, sounds like a bad thing. Coaches, you know what it's like, Alan. They're the most motivated when it comes to personal development. They are junkies with motivational personal development books, programs, seminars, when the government allows them to actually meet other people and be within
Yeah.
6 feet. Just anything whatsoever. Like they're on 1,000 email lists, and they're really motivated that way, which I'm not trying to knock that. But if you're doing all that stuff, you're consuming all these different voices and everything else, it's tough to have your own voice and your own ideas come through, because you're just flooded with everything. And you end up sounding like the people you're following, whether it be Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchard, Marie Forleo, or so on. And I remember a few years back in 2016, Tony Robbins released his new Netflix documentary. It was
I am not your guru.
Yeah, so the funny thing with that documentary, I eagerly awaited it. I wanted to see, well, a couple of things. I was hoping to see a warts and all stuff. I wanted to see a little bit of shading and not, but it came across more like a glossy infomercial for Tony's programs, I
Oh
found.
yeah.
But I also noticed Tony was dropping the F-bomb every second word. I don't know if you noticed. It was,
Oh yeah. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Which is weird, because from reading books, I just reread Awaken the Giant Within, and it's much different vibe there. But hey, he's Tony Robbins. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Immediately after that, my social media feeds were filled with coaches who were trying to be just like Tony, and they were just dropping F-bombs every so. They're cursing like sailors.
Oh wow.
And they're saying some really silly stuff. I remember one coach is like, if you don't go for your effing dreams, you're an effing piece of effing crap. Now get off your effing ass and go for it. Something like that. And he never talked like that before. And I'm like, come on, just be yourself. I curse away from this. I'm not going to come on here and drop a bunch of F-bombs and try to break your record, Alan, but I'm also not perfect. I'm not a choir boy. I'm dropping F-bombs away from this sometimes, but I just talk like I talk usually with this stuff, and that's the way to do it. But when you have people who are a little bit maybe softer vibe and stuff like that, but suddenly the messaging is all like the rough biker, F-bombs and really salty language.
Yeah.
Or the flip side of it, if they curse like a sailor, but then they're, let's say a female coach, you see it all the time, like, hey, gorgeous, hey, lovely, hey, beautiful, and all this other stuff. That doesn't match either. So I always say, just be yourself. Don't try to emulate and copy other people. I mean, you can get inspiration from them, but you have to have your own voice, your own message, and your own self. Don't lose yourself when you're getting out there.
Be inspired. And it's funny, because there was a friend of mine who in radio actually was the guy, he sang for a band called Quiet Riot. His name's Kevin Dubrow.
Yeah.
And Kevin passed some years ago. But when he would tell me all his rock star stories, he would say, I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. But anyway, there's so many Kevin Dubrow stories, and that's why I'm getting off.
Well, actually, I mean, I get. Yeah,
go on.
Oh no, and I mean, feel free to cut this if you want. But when we're talking about when you've taken too much info from other people, I was reading Kurt Cobain's journals. There's an excellent book which is actually his actual journal entries. You know, not typed, but they're drawn, written, and everything else. And I noticed in there, he said, "Don't listen to too much music if you're a musician because you're going to start sounding like everyone else." So he actually limited the amount of music that he took in. From others too. So I always remember that with Kurt Cobain. I wasn't a big Nirvana fan, but that's something I took from that.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because Kevin said the opposite. He said, amateurs borrow, professionals steal. You know, and
Yeah.
and so it's funny because sometimes we would go and hang out on the weekends and drink a little bit, and he would go, "I'm going to play you this song by Mott the Hoople, and you know, and here's this line from my song, Axe Grinder. Okay, I took it from this song or what I mean, you know." And he was, you know, and obviously at some point they developed their own sound, but the point of it was, I think that that new coaches think they have to be a certain way. And they just kind of take on the persona of that. It's almost like the difference of being, you know, inspired by Mick Jagger or being a Mick Jagger impersonator. It's like you land up being a bad, you know, a version of that somebody's only willing to pay, you know, anywhere from $0 to $10 to see in a club, you know, rather than the real deal. And so then I think that coaches also get caught in this thing of where not only just shiny objects, buying a bunch of softwares and those kinds of things, and certainly I was guilty of it. I think I spent my first year, I spent $6,000 in software, just JV-zooing it up, you know. And then you find out that you have a half dozen funnel builders and a half dozen graphics things. But I think that people, when they're doing or they're wanting to do their coaching business, they got to get out of consumer mode. So it's okay that you consume, but consume in order to create. And so you have to really like engage left brain and right brain. You know, it looks like a big shiny object. Okay, will you use it? No. Okay, move on. That kind of thing. So
no, I agree totally. It's the end of the day, it's all about action, not just cramming your brain with knowledge. So I'm very careful. There's 4 or 5 people that are on my Mount Rushmore that have been important as I've been growing my online coaching business. And I will pretty much buy all their stuff. I'll let it soak in, and I've gotten to know some of them too. I've been lucky that way. I've had them on my podcast and so on. But I'm not going to have 100 people that I'm trying to do that with, because that would just be confusing. So be careful who you're taking advice from.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I would think that coaches, if they take in everybody, it's hard to funnel all that down into what you are, because it keeps you going into so many different directions. Like right now, I mean, you know, you can click on something, you can watch something from Les Brown, Tony Robbins, you can go ahead and just spend an hour just going through, you know, whatever the greatest coaches that ever lived, and you will definitely not have enough time to do your website or do your things.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, what about the imposter syndrome, or where people just don't want to charge what they're worth? How do people get over that?
I know it's going to sound corny because people think, oh, it's not this easy, but I've always said that the toughest person to convince for any price raising and bumping your fees up is the man or woman who's looking back at you in the mirror. Once you convince yourself, other people are much easier. And you got to play a little bit of a Jedi mind trick on yourself with it. Every 6 months or so, I evaluate my pricing for different programs and things I'm doing. And there's always hesitation, like, do I really want to bump it up because it's selling at this? I've never regretted bumping it up. In fact, I usually think, God, I should have done that sooner. Once you start getting sales at that new price, then it's like, remember Roger Bannister at the 4-minute mile? For years and years, people tried to break a mile in under 4 minutes, and it couldn't be done just because they thought it was impossible. Then Roger Bannister did it in 3 minutes and 59 point something seconds. And I think it was immediately the year after, something like 37 runners also broke it. And it wasn't that people suddenly got faster. It was just the power of belief. They're like, hey, look, that Roger Bannister did it, so I can do it as well. And it's the same way with your fees. You bump them up. You get that first 2 people at that new price, then bang, you're off to the races. It's just, you have to really feel that you're worth it. If you don't feel that, it's going to be tough to sell it. I'm the type of person, if I believe in what I'm selling, I can sell pretty much anything. I tried network marketing many years ago, MLM. I always said, I'm just not an MLM guy. No offense to people who are listening or watching it. I don't like MLM.
Yeah.
But against my better judgment, a friend talked me into a coffee MLM. I don't even drink coffee. I hate coffee. And here I am in a coffee MLM. I was absolutely horrible. I think I did 30 such meetings, and I could not sell ice to that ice to Eskimos or whatever. It's because I didn't believe in it. I just felt bad. I felt icky. I'm like, yeah, I'm not enjoying this. So it's really important to feel that, hey, this is worth every penny or more from what I'm selling with, and then it'll make it much easier to sell it.
Well, and don't you think when it's easy to sell it, then it's easy to work with those people? Like you don't have like any guilt or anything, like you feel like you can really, really help them. Like there's no trepidation with that.
Yeah. No, I know some people who will not sell to people who ask if there's a refund policy or a money back guarantee, because that's a red flag that if they're already asking questions like that, then they could be what's known in the industry as a refund artist, which luckily I haven't bumped into too many of them, knock on wood, but I did have one a few years back, joined a group program of mine who had all those questions, and I shouldn't have let him into the group program. But I did. I went against my better judgment.
Yeah.
We did our first week of call, great call. Everyone enjoyed the call or whatever, who then the next day wants his money back or wants to get out of it. So I let him go, but I charged him what I call an asshole tax. I said, I'm going to charge it for last night's call, but then be on your way.
Yeah.
And this is someone who had struggled for years to get his business going. He had been 10 years of dipping his toe in the coaching waters and never got going. And I said, you have to look at yourself here. There's a reason why in a decade you haven't been able to do anything with it.
Yeah.
But he was a refund artist, and I don't want that type of person, especially not in a group coaching program, because that could poison the waters. So I just let him go, and I said, okay, have a nice life.
Yeah. Well, I think the best thing is to cut those people out early if you can. As soon as you can, because you're right, they do poison the water.
Well, the funny thing with it, when I let him go, instead of trying to throw legalese at him, like, hey, you signed an agreement, and trying to fight him, I said, I'm letting him go. The next day, someone reached out to me about the group program. And as we were talking, I said, hey, actually, there's an unexpected opening for the seat that just opened up last night, literally. Would you be interested in joining that group? She ended up joining, and she was a much better fit for it. So sometimes it's cleaning the junk out, the dead wood, and we'll bring in fresh blood and better people anyways.
That's awesome. And so with that, like group coaching, do you find what do you think is the most manageable for the amount of people that are in like a group coaching program?
Yeah.
Is it 5? What's the magic number? 10?
Well, full disclosure, right now I'm at the moment not doing group coaching because I'm focusing on masterminds. I'm running a mastermind group, but I did, close to 20 group coaching programs over the years. I always went with 6. I found for me that was a number that felt really good. Now I know that some people go with more, they can go with 10. Got to get some people with, which I don't really consider group coaching. It's more like a call-in thing where they'll be teaching. They got 100 people on the line. They can raise their hand and get questions asked. I don't consider that to be true group coaching.
Yeah. So
for me personally, I like 6. That always worked well for me, but other coaches would have a slightly different answer. Technically you do group coaching with, you get 2 people in there with you as well. But yeah, 6 was always my magic number.
Nice. Yeah. It seems like there is a magic number for any coach that, I mean, of course, if you're only looking at the money, then like that's a problem. You could put 10, 20, 30, 40 people in there if you want. But the point of it is that people, if you spend a little more time with that magic number, and I think that people get better results.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's all you want is results for your clients, because there's nothing worse than somebody not getting results, being unhappy, and then whatever, poisoning the waters wherever you're,
Yep.
wherever you hang, whether it's your Facebook group or whatever. So
Agreed.
So if somebody was going to hire a coach, what would be the thing that they would look for in hiring a coach? Like they're being pitched from somebody they met at an event or that kind of thing, or they just feel like they need a coach. What would be the things that somebody hiring a coach would look for? We got a visit from the dog.
That's a cute dog back there.
She's awesome.
I like her. Yeah. I mean, one thing I think is important that they have a track record. They've got happy clients, testimonials, legit ones, case studies. Someone who isn't just full of it, which there's more than a few of them online, as you know.
Yeah.
With taking pictures with the rented Lambos or the mansions or the yachts or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
There's you want to make sure that there's I think it's important to have a good rapport, that you get along with it, but you're not hiring a friend. And that's why I always stress to people, if they're like, oh well, he or she's pushing me a bit too much, I'm like, well, that's what I think a coach should be doing. When I hire somebody, I want someone that's going to challenge me, and I want to stay open to that feedback. I don't want someone that just parrots back whatever I'm saying with it. So while it's important, I think, to get along, have a good working relationship that way, at the end of the day, I look at results. And I think it's better to have a coach that will challenge you, they'll push you, not somebody that's you're looking at as a drinking buddy that you're going down to the bar Friday nights to hang out with. That's not, you've got plenty of those people in your hometown. You can hang out with them, but your coach isn't your buddy.
Yeah. And I think one thing is that some of the coaches talk about the results that they helped somebody create, and they sensationalize it so much, or they add to it, that it just gives people a false sense of like, so-and-so did it, I can do it. And
yeah.
I mean, I think that's another thing in our industry, is that there is, and I've heard so many horror stories throughout the years of like, oh, I paid this one coach $10K, $30K, $50K. I never got anything out of that. So it's like, I feel like there almost should be like this vetting that should be done by, coaches, or I don't know what it would be.
Well, that's where messaging comes in with the marketing. So with my stuff, whether it be my emails, social media and things, a lot of times I'm trying to repel people, because I don't want the get rich quick people that are expecting to make $1 million in a month, because that's just not going to end well. It's not going to look good for me. So I specifically tell people that, hey, this is not a get rich quick. You're going to have to work. You're going to go through ups and downs. You're going to have some late nights. You're going to have to put in the elbow grease with it, because I don't want to attract the type of person that generally gets attracted. The same reason why my lowest offering is my hard copy newsletter. It's $97 a month, or $9.97 a year. I don't want to have a $9 type offering that attracts a $9 crowd, because I know what they're like. They're in most cases a bigger pain in the butts. They'll give you a lot more trouble than a $5,000 client or $10,000 client would as well. So although I'm an optimist, I think I'm a very optimistic person. When I'm talking to a potential client, I take off the rose-colored glasses from them, and I want them to be a realist, because I don't want them to hit their first rough patch and think, oh my God, this is horrible. I want them to be prepared. Hey, there's going to be some sleepless nights here, some rough times. You'll get through it if you keep working, but don't think it's all going to be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Well, I think some people think that coaches are there to fix them, and that a coach is a be end all. It's like next to God, next to, and that you just wave your magic wand, and then they don't have to do anything. And so, I mean, I guess one of the biggest things that I notice in group coaching is I can just, when I'm sitting, with my people is I see who's taking notes, and I know that if they're not taking notes and they're just kind of enjoying the experience, it's fine, but they're probably not going to go ahead and take it to another level, because, when the group coaching ends, it ends. And, like, what did he say? What did that person's, or, what did Alan say? That kind of thing,
Yeah. I wish more coaches focused on mastery of something. My recommendation is take your time that you're spending browsing social media, which is a lot of times junk food for the brain.
Yeah.
Close out Facebook or YouTube, whatever you're doing, and just start really diving into something. So you and I have talked about copywriting, how important that is for coaches.
Yep.
I'm making an effort here this year to really dive in. I used to think, okay, yeah, I'm good with copywriting. I don't need to study it or whatever. Well, no, I do need to study it. So one of the things I'm doing, which I certainly didn't come up with this, a lot of the greats recommend this, but every day I'm copying by hand headlines from successful sales pages and direct marketing pieces, and copying bullet points and doing things like that, which some people say is boring. And yeah, it can be boring, but the whole thing is it's helping to sink into your brain. The good ads and the good copy is then sinking into your brain, but most people don't have that patience to actually do that. They'd rather browse Facebook, and they're wasting a god awful amount of time on social media that should be used elsewhere. So I would like to see coaches do some more deep dives into some of those skills that they're going to need, and copywriting is one of them. I think their time is better used that way than fighting with strangers on social media.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And I think that, like, if you look at super successful people, like, their thing is hacking other people's stuff. Like, Russell Brunson. I mean, he talks about ethically hacking. If somebody's got a great headline, how could you put yourself into that headline? Or whatever that is, if they're writing something with bullet points, like, it was interesting because you sent me your one sheet about your business and your coaching business and your background and that, and it's a really simple one sheet, but it's got a little style, it's got a little finesse, it's got your logo on there, your picture, and that kind of thing, in which not everybody does. You like, when I get a one sheet, sometimes it's just what do you want, a doc sheet?
I have to get it updated. It has Caveman Mark with the big beard.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
My girlfriend, we weren't together when I had that big beard, and she's like, thank God. She goes, oh my God, that was horrible. I said, hey, you know what? You got to mix it up a little bit. So,
that's so funny.
But yeah, she's much happier with the beard length now. But yeah, one sheets are something very simple to get booked on podcasts. I get pitched all the time for my show, and if there's no one sheet, I usually don't look at it if it's just a text, because usually it's copied and paste. Hey, Mark, I love your show. Sometimes they say, hi, Mike, or something. It's not even
exactly.
Love your show. And then you can just tell it's copied and pasted. A one sheet, something that you could get done on Fiverr for $5, get someone to whip one up. And
for sure.
I know that's going into a different direction. We could talk all day about how to get booked on more podcasts, but so many people could benefit from going out on shows like I'm doing here now.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're not willing to spend a few minutes and $5 to get a good one sheet done to get booked onto those shows. And you think, well, geez, why not? It just blows my mind.
Well, here's the thing. I guess that's the road less traveled, and that's always worked for me. That's almost always worked for anybody that I know. Like, you just, I mean, how I got into radio is I went to broadcasting school. There were a half dozen people that were invited to be interns for a new morning show that was coming on in Las Vegas. And we all interviewed. Everybody showed up. I dressed, for the part, and everybody showed up, and they said, we thought it was actually they were going to pick one person. They said, you know what? All of you guys qualify. You're all hired to be interns tomorrow morning. Be here at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'll be darned. I got in the parking lot. There was no other cars except one other car. And so I ended up showing. I was the only guy that showed up. Within a week, I was actually pretty much co-hosting the show with the guy. because he just needed somebody to bounce off of. And so it's that kind of thing of just either showing up or dress for success, showing up. I mean, it's just be different and, show up as a pro. It's like you're presenting. When I look at this one sheet, you're presenting yourself as yourself. It's you got a V-neck on, or you're not wearing a three-piece suit. You're not standing in front of the Lambo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just being authentic and who you are. And I think that's probably leads into, like, how did you get 100,000 social media followers?
Consistency. I think consistency is very underrated. So my whole business is based around the thought that you need, instead of trying to do 200 different things, pick just a couple things to focus on, but do it really well. I call them pillars. So for my business, I have 3 pillars, and yours and anyone who's listening to this will probably have different ones. But my big 3, there's podcasting. So that's on both sides of the mic. It's my show, Natural Born Coaches, but then it's going out on, 50 to 100 shows a year, just like this, like we're doing now. So there's podcasting. There's Facebook, but specifically the Facebook group, which is at about 20,000 members now. So I put a lot of energy, time into the Coaching Jungle Facebook group. And finally, email marketing, and that's daily emails. I didn't get anything from email for 2 years before I started doing daily emails. And I started daily emails. I just checked. I've done over 1,700 straight days without missing a day. So I wouldn't have done that many. It was April 2016 was my first when I started daily emails. So if I'm doing podcasting, Facebook group, daily emails, I know that I'm pretty good. But what do most people do? They will try to do, again, 200 things. They'll try something for a couple of weeks, and then they'll move on. They'll quit. They'll try something else, bright, shiny object. I've just stuck with it. And that's where my podcast, as we're doing this now, my podcast had almost 700 episodes. And that was a lot of work. It was a lot of time, but that show has really got me a lot of business. It's benefited me immensely. So things like that with the consistency, it's like wearing down a rock, water that's constantly, hitting a rock. But a lot of people don't have the patience. They want the instant money, clients and stuff right away. And it doesn't work that way. So I would say consistency is a big reason why I'm here today versus where I started in 2014.
Well, it's interesting. I think you put up a hack one time in the Coaching Jungle that you do all of your social media for the month on a Friday or something like that, or you pick one day. Is that what it is?
Well, what it is I don't book calls on Fridays usually, and I use that as a content creation day. And in the summers, because us Canadians, we do get a summer, believe it or not. I'll hit the beach. Friday afternoons, I often get to the beach too. But my Fridays, I'm not booking calls. It's usually for content creation. And that's how I was able to do things like daily emails and not miss any days, is I will often sit down and write a week's worth of emails to my list in one sitting and just crank them out, schedule them, then they're good to go. Same with the podcast, with other stuff that I'm doing as well. So I'm a really big fan of batching.
Okay, and I think that's a lot of people's frustration is like they sit down and they're like, well, what motivates me today? You know, and then they try to write something that day rather than compartmentalizing that. So batching it. Yeah, that's a great that is a great thing, because I think that some days you just flow and some days you don't. So if you just set aside a time, I mean, I think it's the same thing of like, if you never intend to take a vacation, you won't. Meaning, like, if you don't say, okay, on January 4th, the family's going to do this for 3 days or whatever. If you don't, January 4th comes and goes, and there you are. Like you look. It's
a lot of pressure for you. Yeah, if you sit down 30 minutes before your email is going out to your list and you're staring at the blank screen and you see the blinking cursor, it's like, oh God, what am I going to write about today? And life gets in the way too. So a couple of years ago, my father was rushed to the hospital, and there was a few weeks there where it was dicey. It was touch and go. I was on the road a lot because he lives away from me. It's not in the same city. If I didn't have my emails batched, I had a couple weeks worth of emails in the can, I know my streak would have been broken because my head just wasn't there that I would want to sit down. I was living in hotels and driving back and forth and just not on top of my game because there's all the stuff going on with my father. So life will get in the way too. I'm not saying that you have to have a month's worth of emails scheduled, but I like having at least a week, ideally 2 or 3 weeks in there.
Nice. Man, that's I mean, like, I thought that was huge. I was like, because I was frustrated with content, and it's funny because I still haven't made my Friday like your Friday yet, but that's my plan for 2020 is just like getting this all handled to where, you know, like, because I think discipline and consistency can happen quite easily if you just schedule it. Like this day I'm doing this, you know, I'm not, you know, nothing else can move me except, you know, something, tragic or that kind of thing. But so let me ask
well, it means turning your, go ahead.
Go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's going to mean turning your phone off, off your email, your social media tabs, and everything else. There's no way you can get into the flow with what we talked about batching if your phone's dinging with text messages or notifications every 2 seconds. So I know that's tough nowadays in 2020. The phones are attached to us, but you got to get those distractions away.
That's awesome. And so what do you think, what is the time frame that you should give yourself as a coach to do this, like to struggle to like, you know, is it a year, is it 2 years, is it what is it? I mean, you know, like a time frame, or I don't know, like a
I don't know if there's one right answer there, but I would say for the first year, don't put pressure on yourself to make $1 million. Your first year, you're a babe in the woods. You're brand new. You don't know up from down. You're trying to figure it out. So at least survive, you know, make a few bucks, make sure that you're eating, you know, and stuff, but don't think, oh, I have to be making 7 figures. You see, I was lucky with my coaching business because I've had years in real estate. So it took me probably 6 months to really get rolling with coaching. But I thought back to my real estate days when I was 21. First 6 months of real estate was priming the pump. It was working the phones every day. It was just doing prospecting and work that wasn't fun. But then it started to come in and started to roll. And it's the same way with a coaching business. Is your first, 6 months is what always sticks out to me. You know, the first 6 months you make any sales, get clients, hey, that's great. But you're looking at that as a learning experience, and then you go from there and try to survive. And if you can make it past there, you're going to be light years ahead of other coaches who can't, make it past 6 months or a year. Just stay in there, live to fight another day, and then eventually it's going to get rolling if you're doing the work.
Well, you know what? And the other thing is, I think that young coaches, because they follow different people, whomever, it's like Tony Robbins is who Tony Robbins is. Of course, he's going to have a private jet and an awesome house and all this other stuff. But the other guys that are teaching coaches, I think, that come out with an ad and, oh man, you want to make 10K a month or 10K per client and all this other stuff. So people are attracted to the money. And I think what happens is that people forget that, like 7 figures, they wouldn't even know how to wouldn't know how to spend that kind of money, and it seems like, somebody like, if they were making 5K a month or 10K or let's just say 10K a month, they're making 10K a month. Like look what kind of lifestyle that would afford you. That's $120,000 a year. I mean, what, like some people don't know what the lease on their Porsche 911 or whatever would be, like if they just did the numbers, like if I want to live in this kind of house, like what would that be? So that people are trying to go ahead and hit those 7 figures because they think that's what they need to have the private jet, but they're not worried about the little steps, the baby steps in between.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're comparing themselves with people who've been in it a lot longer. So I always say if your coach has been in it a year or two, don't compare yourself to anyone. I think comparing is dangerous, but if you absolutely have to compare yourself to someone, don't look at the Tony Robbins, Brendan Burchards, or the people who've been at it for decades. Look more at people that have been at it longer. And I see so many new coaches that think I need to have a website that's just as good as Tony Robbins' website. And that's just, it's crazy, just get out there, make mistakes. You're going to learn from them, but don't compare yourself to these stars that have been at it that long.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think that people just take it to heart, and they don't realize, they just think, well, if I get the private jet, or if I take the picture, or if I do this thing, or if I mug it up with people, or on social media, take a picture with Tony Robbins, that, that's going to automatically make me successful. And I think that they just have you know, a, it's disingenuous. So,
Yeah. I mean, one tip I would give for anyone who's struggling with their coaching business now is there's a saying quote from Frank Underwood, House of Cards, Kevin Spacey's character. And he said, if you don't like how the table is set, flip it over, or something like that. That was a saying behind it. So I see so many people get married to doing it a certain way. It's like, well, hey, if it's not working, it's not the end of the world to just totally flip the table and try something new and take some chances, get a little bit crazy. Don't feel like you have to paint by numbers and do it like everyone else. With this coaching thing, you could build a business any number of ways. There's lots of ways to skin a cat. So maybe you have to get a little bit wild and crazy and step out there and do something different. You can do it. It's your business.
Interesting. Yeah, that was, I guess, a big takeaway, is that I just noticed that some coaches don't have a funnel, some coaches don't have an email list, some coaches are, I mean, for the longest time, or I would speak on stages. In the past couple of years, I was able to speak on stages, and that's how I was able to meet my clients and clientele and that kind of thing. And I didn't have a funnel and didn't have an email list, and that was just fine for me. And then I said, well, this is, I like how this works. And then certainly after you go through 2020, and all of a sudden there's no more stages, then you gotta get a little creative. So
yeah, I know a coach who didn't have a website. He had his name's not John, I'll call him John. He had chatwithjohn.com, and whenever someone went to that URL, it forwarded them to his messenger, like open up their Facebook Messenger to message him. So he had like chatwithjohn.com. That was his website. Yeah, what's your website again? Go to chatwithjohn.com, because he figures conversations with people are important. He spent $10 on a GoDaddy URL, forwarded it, and a free social media account. He didn't spend $1,000 or thousands of dollars trying to get a website done and delaying things by months. He just jumped out there and just started doing it.
Nice. And lastly, would you say, because here's the trap I think a lot of coaches run into, is they want to help everybody. So if you want to help everybody, do you offer something free, like a, whatever, just like an email series or a PDF or ebook, whatever, that kind of thing? And then like when you can't help somebody, when you realize I really can't help this person where they're at, and they're at a certain or place financially, do you have certain levels of things so you can try to go ahead and help the masses that way?
Well, I know I'm not gonna be able to help everyone regardless. So
okay.
I think it's really important for coaches to know where the free paid lines should be. So you're going to give some stuff free to show that, hey, you're an expert, you know what you're talking about. You didn't just roll out of bed this morning. So things could be like podcasts, free emails to your list, and different things you're doing on social media. But at some point you're going to have to start charging. And now, almost 7 years since I started, I can fit my offerings on one little yellow sticky note. This isn't the actual sticky note, but for a fact,
of course,
I know if I can't fit my offers on this sticky note, then it means I have to clear things up and condense it a little bit more. So mine is very clear. You could wake me up at 3 a.m. and shake me out of a slumber and say, how do you help people? And I could be like, bang, here you go. What do most coaches do, though, is, okay, how can you help me? They don't have a clear offer, or they ramble for 20 minutes, or they look like deer caught in headlights with it. So you don't need tons of offers. In fact, studies have shown too many choices reduce sales if people have too much to choose from because they get confused and there's resistance when they're buying. So you could start with very few offerings. You're kind of going with the Five Guys approach, or one of those restaurants. So like I think In-N-Out Burger is another one that has very limited menu. It doesn't have 1,000 items on there.
Yeah. It's interesting because the restaurant we went to last night, there was so much, it was just confusing. It's just, they had, they had this and this and this, but and I like what you're saying about with the put it on a sticky note. If you have 3 offers or 4 offers, then, that's probably good.
Yeah. Joe Sugarman, who's written a bunch of books, he's a big advertising guy. I remember a story he told once where a big company hired him to do a magazine, basically ads.
He's the blue blocker guy, right?
I don't know if he's doing that. I have some advertising books that he has.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm not sure.
I think I met him.
Yeah.
He's
Joseph. Yeah. Sugarman. And, so the story they told was it was the people hired him were the Swiss Army knife people. They were doing Swiss Army watches, and they brought him in. They wanted to do this 1-page magazine ad, and they had a certain budget, X million of dollars or whatever. So he wanted to go in with just a simple one watch in this ad, black men's watch. They wanted to do 9 different watches. So they had 3 different colors, and they had men's, women's, children of each color. So that's where their 9 comes from. And he said, no, we can't do it. And they gave him a hard time. So he said, fine. He said, tell you what, we'll put half our ad spend on my idea with just a 1 men's watch, half on yours. Their theory was, well, if we have more watches on there, we have a better chance of selling more because we're going to capture women, children, and everything else. And make a long story short, his part of that A/B test pulled significantly higher. I think it was 4 times his sales with it, because others looked at 9 watches and ad, like, oh my God, there's too much going on here. And just, they hesitated with it. Same thing goes with your offers for Coach. You may think you're going to make more sales by having more offers, but it's probably the opposite.
That's incredible. Awesome. Well, incredible information. And you could join the Coaching Jungle on Facebook, and you have the coachingjungle.com, and then mark.coach, but marc.coach.
Well, currently, Mark, we made some changes. So mark.coach will, at the moment, will forward over to naturalborncoaches.com. So I would say coachingjungle.com or naturalborncoaches.com. That'll get you to the podcast.
Awesome. Is there any kind of special offer that you have that would help people right now that, to help get them focused for 2021? Anything you're selling that you feel of value?
Well, my big focus 2021 is a big part of it's going to be towards my mastermind groups, which I started a year ago. So it's called the Coaching Jungle Mastermind. I have groups with a maximum 8 people per group. I'm there for the calls, but it's very much a team effort, cool energy there. I'll talk all day about the benefits of masterminds. Napoleon Hill talked about it, and other greats gushed about them, but you can check that out at junglemastermind.com.
Nice. Awesome. Mark, Mawhinney or Mawhinney?
Yeah, Mawhinney. You got her.
Mawhinney. Okay, Mawhinney. Awesome. I appreciate your time, sir, and we'll look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Tune in and share our podcast. Plus, visit our sponsors at theuniverseisscreaming.com. This is a Mega Shift Media production.